All right, so here's my workshop. Also sometimes known as Graham's office, but for the most part, I take over it with random pieces of wood pallets, paints, measuring tapes, saws, and sanders. Okay, so I'm going to go through what I would do to make a typical sign using pallet wood. This pallet is already cut into small pieces and sanded. I didn't feel I needed to show you that. And I'm just going to assemble these 3 pieces. Pieces of wood that are brackets. This type of wood doesn't really matter. You don't see it. It's just there to hold the pieces together on the back of the sign. So what you need to do is make sure you flip the sign over so that you're looking at the back. Once again, the back pieces of this wood also doesn't really matter. So if your wood is a little bit rough or bent or cut like mine is, it doesn't matter because you won't see it. So I'm going to measure to figure out where I want these to hit so that when I put the hooks on, it's level, or at least as best level as I can get it. Alright, and then I'm going to screw these on. Depending on the wood you use, sometimes you'll have to drill pilot holes in the wood first to make sure your wood doesn't split. In this case, I'm skipping that step, but you will see in some of my signs the back part, it does crack a little bit. It's still secure enough, but sometimes you'll crack the whole piece, and then you have to get a new piece of wood to do the sign. So. So now that this sign is all put together, this is when I would typically move into the other room in our apartment because the smell of Graham's hockey bag is really disgusting. Alright, so now I've moved and taken over our entire kitchen table, and this is where I do all of my painting. So I'm going to do my base coat of a rough white, and I use old, hard, paint-crusted paintbrushes. If you have any of these that you're looking to get rid of, I'd take them. They're great for making a sign look antiqued because you can just do a dry, rough paintbrush without it looking too covered. To draw out my design or word that I'm going to put on the sign. This is a question I get very often when anytime someone sees my signs, they ask where I get my stencils or what kind of stencils I do, and that's kind of the tricky part to explain to people because I actually don't do stencils. I don't do my own designs, I don't do freehand letters, I wish, but no. I always get mine off of font. So what I'll do is pull up just your basic Word document, find a font I like, adjust the word to the size that I want it to, which can be a matter of actually zooming in your computer screen as opposed to setting it to a certain number. And once I get it on my computer screen, this is literally what I do. Take a blank piece of paper, tape it to the screen, and I'll trace. You can cut. Alright, and then I come out with something like this. Alright, now that my paint is dry, I'm able to start my top coat. Once again, I'm going to use a rough paintbrush just so that I can do the paint kind of to have a messy, antique look like you'll see in the finished product. All right, now that my top coat is totally dry, I'm ready to start transferring my word onto the sign. So you're just going to take your template and place it on the sign exactly where you want it. If you're doing a sign that's a little bit more intricate, you might need to pull out the measuring tape and make sure everything's even and so on. This just being the one word and me basically being able to tell that it's straight right away, I'm not going to bother doing that. And you just want to tape it on. Excuse him. You want to tape it on only on one end so that you can do this with the template, all right? And the reason you want to be able to do that is because what you're going to do is slip under there either carbon paper, which will transfer black lines, or transfer paper that will transfer white lines. You can pick these up. Black at any office store, Staples has it, whereas the white stuff is usually more specific to craft stores like Michael's or your small local Perth Fabric Crafts and more.
What child is this who laid to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping? This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him loud, the babe, the Son of Mary. Nails and spears shall pierce him through, the cross be borne for me, for you. Hail, hail, the Word made flesh, the babe, the Son.
All right, once you finish tracing your word, it's important not to take the template off until you've checked and made sure that everything did transfer on. In my case, it did, and I'm going to try and show you, but it's very light because I did the white transfer. It might be hard for the camera to see, but we'll give it a try. And now I'm ready to paint. So I always use a very fine tip paintbrush to do an outline of the words. If I'm doing very small words, you might have to use the fine tip one for the whole thing. With this one, I'll be able to switch to a bigger paintbrush after I do an outline. But this part is the most time-consuming part. You have to be very careful and go very slowly, or else it looks very shaky, or you're outside of the lines, and it really just takes patience. All right, now I've done 2 coats, so just to finish it off, I'm taking a brush with a little bit of white on it, and I just kind of roughly go over the whole thing. And voila!